as much as it pains me to make this video, a very dear friend of mine, Chris, lives in Columbus, North Carolina. It's right near Tryon. His house flooded and had like 5 feet of water in there. When the water receded, there was a foot or two of silt on the ground, and these are his saws. So I am going to, he's got one saw and plenty of property that needs more than one saw. So somehow or another, in between juggling all my other customers during a hurricane aftermath, we're gonna get Chris up and running. I don't care if I gotta work all night long. So some of you may know, here, we'll try and put a bright spin on this. I don't need to be all. So this is what it looked like after the restoration. And there's your video. Stihl 064 hybrid. Now he's already pressure washed these and then ran them down to me. This 036, I guess there's still a lot of silt on the inside of this because it's curiously heavy. This one didn't get pressure washed quite as well, maybe a little bit more on that side. But you can see these were absolutely buried. There's the cooling fins. They're all packed. And then, you know, just every little crevice of these three saws. I've got a pole saw outside, same thing. It was submerged. And those are the only ones that weren't up on a shelf or didn't get damaged. But you know, this is, I should have bearings and seals around here for, I think I've got enough to put that back together, you know, split the case, clean everything. What a mess. What a mess. The silt's so fine that I've got another recoil cartridge. But, you know, and bear in mind, you know, this has been pressure washed. These are the pieces that he pulled off and washed these with. But this stuff's as fine as beach sand, maybe finer. I mean, super duper fine. The muffler cover was off. Oof. We'll see what she looks like on the inside. I'm sure it's full too. There's behind the flywheel. I guess he had it on its side, pressure washing it. Isn't that nuts? All right, I haven't taken the top end off yet, but I got all the screws loose. Well, that's not too bad. A little bit of water in there, that'll clean up. I forgot I put Bridgeports in here. Ooh, mostly dry. I think we got it in time. Just gonna have to flush all this out, put some new bearings in here. This stuff's packed in here so hard I had to pry it out with a screwdriver so I could get the throttle linkage loose from the carburetor. I got everything cleaned up yesterday afternoon. It's the next morning. I'm starting early. It's still dark outside. I just can't believe, I mean, the silt was in every last nook and cranny of this saw. Because this is a fresh rebuild, the bearings are, I haven't washed them yet, but while I just had a complete crankcase before I split it, you know, I hosed all this out and tried to flush it and then threw some oil on it overnight. I can still feel a little tiny bit of grit So I'm gonna flush this with maybe a little bit of gasoline, some compressed air, and see if I can get the last few crumbs out of here and get the crankcase free of any remaining silt that's in here. You know, the rest of these little nooks and crannies are gonna have to live. As long as I can keep it away from my sealed area right here, I think I'll be all right. Flushed the crank, re-oiled it. It feels nice and smooth. Piston's still in great shape. Well, the bearings survived. I got those. I actually ended up having to pull them, take the seals out, but nice and smooth, nothing hurt. Let me punch the seals back in and get this top in before we get any more sand in here. I mean, there's grit on everything. I'm trying to be super careful. Okay, sorry I'm really not taking you along for a very good ride. I got the top end on, I'll pull this down, but come on. Oh, who cares? You know, I'm gonna go through the carburetor. That shit got everywhere, my goodness. That looks good. I just ran a little bit of brake clean through that low jet just to make sure that it was clear and that there wasn't anything blocking it. I'm gonna get the rest of the carburetor tidied up. And obviously, I should have dumped all this. I'm gonna see what the fuel looks like in a minute while I've had it off the saw. Well, here's the contents of the gas. That's the least amount of water of anything. There's a little tiny bit in there. It ain't much. A little bit of sediment. I'm gonna use a little compressed air to get the last few crumbs out, inspect the fuel filter, see what's up. Looks like I'm getting excited. We're on the money run now. Just all we're doing is cake decorate, and I do have to put the recoil assembly back together, but it's all there. Well, I'm all out of parts, so I must be done. I did swap out the intake boot. I don't know if I didn't notice this. Where was it? Oh gosh. Here it is. This was on the underside. I don't know what been rubbing or whatever, but it's almost wore through. So I had a spare and put that on there. Other than that, everything else seemed like it survived pretty good. And yes, everything's still got just a thin film of some of the very finest sand, silt. Yeah, it's not fair to call it sand. Let me fire this thing up and see if she runs. All right, I hate to do this to y'all, but this episode is going to be a cliffhanger. The 064 does run. It won't idle, and I can't seem to tune around it. I did not have an OEM clutch side oil seal. Years ago, I bought a bunch of highway ones. They're really firm, and trying to roll it over the lip of the crankshaft, even, wrapping it with a little bit of, heavy duty plastic, just trying to ease that transition, I may have rolled that seal. I mean, it took me like a half an hour. I tried multiple times, where the OEM seals are, well, better. The rubber's more flexible. It'll allow it to stretch and go over, so it makes a good seal. Either that or there's an issue with the low side jet, which I doubt because it seemed to be flowing pretty good. So I'm going to pressure and vacuum test this. But I got to move on because the other saw that Chris needs back, it's the same dude. This one was also submerged in silt. It's been pressure washed. There's still a lot of mud on, in, and around here. So I'm going to start tearing this down and cleaning everything so I can put it all back together again. So that was really time consuming to get it clean. Hopefully that's no big deal and I can get him up and going. Obviously time's of the essence. He's got one saw. It's an 038 Magnum. So we need to get him a little bit of a little something Can't even talk. We need to get him something else to use, something lighter and, you know, something bigger. Okay, let me tear into this 036, and I will see you on the next one with an update on the 064. Here's a third saw. I'm sorry, there was just one more thing kind of deal. This one didn't get pressure washed quite as good, but you can see, I mean, they're just, every possible nook and cranny was filled with this silt. Stay tuned, there's going to be videos on all three.